Alright guys, such comic again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The questions continue on what the Los Angeles Thieves are going to do with their roster if these recent performances continue. Formal says they got to stick it out until the major, at least give Kenny the chance on land, but after that, BenJ reckons that serious questions have to be made not just about Kenny, but potentially another member on the team as well. Also potentially calling out the work ethic of this Los Angeles Thieves team, not helping them in their current challenges. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Some drama about the Stallions red team as well. Not 100% sure what the conclusion of this is going to be, but it looks like some changes are going down behind the scenes at Stallions, so we'll talk about that, I'm sure, probably tomorrow when things start to properly come out. Regardless, another big update of the day was this. This is the M15, and it has officially been nerfed, and the MPC, the weapon that got GA'd by the pros probably unreasonably, has actually been slightly buffed, which I admit doesn't help its case because now it's got slightly better and the two main weapons have got slightly worse. But is it about time that the meta could actually change? The reality is now the two main guns the pros are using have got relatively substantially weaker based on these changes. And look, they're still going to be easy to use guns that the pros will gravitate towards, but it's definitely possible now that other weapons could be more viable. We might start to see players bring other guns out, and look, are they going to GA everything else? Probably not, but who knows. Anyway, the M15, its damage range, its maximum damage range, where it does 21 damage, has gone down from 38 meters down to only 30, which is a pretty substantial range reduction. Its medium damage range is now 18 instead of 19, which is still going to be 6 shots to kill, but maybe changes a couple of things. But yeah, the M15's worse. Its slide to fire time has been increased. Its hip fire spread value has been made worse. Its movement speed has been slightly reduced. Its headshot multiplier has been improved on a certain barrel. But look, those are some big changes, and it's a similar story actually with the Drazah. They've reduced its maximum damage range from 13.3 down to 11.4 meters. The mid-range damage has gone down from 23.5 to 19.7, and the kind of second mid-range damage has gone down from 36.8 meters down to 27.3. So again, pretty substantial range reductions across the board, and its ADS time has increased very marginally from 230 to 235. But still, Drazah and M15 will now be worse, and they discuss here that, yeah, the gun was a little bit too good in multiple ways. Octane says more, like, you know, let's keep going with this, right? Let's get rid of this meta and put something else in instead. Whether the pros will yield to that is a different question. But let's talk about the drama with Thieves, because the last couple of days it's been controversial for sure what they should do. Some are saying you've got to get rid of Kenny now. Some are saying you've got to leave it till the major. They play OpTic this coming weekend. That might be a key talking point. BenJ says, look, Huke and Shotzzy, they're not playing that well. They've got to rely right now on their ARs, which I think in many respects the numbers kind of back that up. Not to say that Shotzzy and Huke won't get there, but Simp says, what are you talking about, BenJ? I can rely on Ghosty just carrying me all year. So obviously Simp's been doing his damage as well, but Ghosty's had a pretty phenomenal start to the season. But JoeDeceives has also been talking about Kenny and what Thieves need to do. Now, there was an assessment of what BenJ was saying, where effectively he was saying, consider dropping aBeZy as well. Now, this is the key talking point with Ben, because we know that for the last couple of seasons, he's been aBeZy's biggest op, right? When he was on FaZe, he was often calling out aBeZy for losing the Spiral gunfight. Not playing especially effectively in hardpoint was often BenJ's primary criticism. And whether you think that was fair or not, it's definitely an interesting conversation around this current Thieves team, how aBeZy and HyDra are working together. But look, Ben didn't say they've got to drop aBeZy. He clarified and said, if they drop Kenny and things, you know, don't go well, let's say they drop Kenny before Major 1 and then they go to Major 1 and things don't go to plan, then with somebody else in the team, there will be a question because, look, Scrap and HyDra, they're not going anywhere, right? So BenJ's point is, not saying that they should drop aBeZy, but they should at least, you know, think about it and not necessarily even go to the extreme of properly considering it, but like think about it more in a holistic view to say, okay, what is going on with the team that's leading to these issues? Now, you might argue that Kenny underperforming and having these stinker maps and series is having a ripple effect, right? The rest of the team, they feel like they've got to do too much. They're overextending maybe. They're not playing so fundamentally well. You bring in a player that's dropping better numbers than Kenny is, things might get better, full stop. That may be true to an extent, but as we'll see when we look at the numbers in a few minutes' time, it's not so clear-cut to draw that conclusion. Now, Formal says you can't blow it up before the LAN, right? You've just got to ride it out. If anything, it could be a good thing they play OpTic next weekend. It's an opportunity to kind of reset the narrative, as he was talking about. But he also talks about aBeZy and HyDra, the way that they're currently working as a duo. Look, HyDra's had a couple of duos in his career, worked most effectively, really, with Kismet, right? And then with Envoy, really, the last season or so. But yeah, the HyDra and Kiz duo is still considered pretty gold standard, at least when it comes to the way that HyDra likes to approach the game. Because, as I say, when we look at these numbers in a second, HyDra, he hates being in the hill. It's like his least favourite thing to do. Envoy will do that if necessary. He was effectively the second best objective player in the league last year after guess who, Dan Ghosty. So both of those guys were doing it all from the objective side with Scrap and HyDra. You know, the team composition made a lot of sense. The changes they made, understandable in the circumstances, but still have led them into what was going to be an inevitable predicament as to, okay, who's actually going to get in the hill? Who is going to play around the objective? You know, HyDra doesn't always like to be... He's not a Simp to an aBeZy, right? He is a different type of player to Simp, and making that work with aBeZy, I think, was always going to be a bit of an adjustment period. Now, I think you would like, in that scenario, Kenny to be dropping consistent 0.9s, and then maybe you feel more confident that you could work on that kind of... that part of the problem. But right now, there's a few things. So Kenny is obviously being talked about mainly in the conversation, not to defend his recent play, but I think there's a little bit more going on. Now, Formal says they should stick it out, and this is one of the problems to work on. And this is what BenJ says, though, right? Like, if you drop Kenny, which is, like, what they probably will do if this continues, right? Then you've got to think about the whole aBeZy dynamic, because HyDra and Scrap aren't going anywhere. Now, Scrap... nothing's changed as far as I'm concerned with Scrap. He continues to dominate the server a lot of the time. His impact on the game is still unquestionable, but every other player on that team, there are questions about what they're currently doing on the map. Now, BenJ also says that he's heard from many pro players that of all the teams in the league, those that are turning up most frequently late to scrims, it's Thieves. Now, he does say that's over the last year and a half, not even just this year so far, so it's not necessarily to blame aBeZy or Kenny, right? So this is more of a criticism, it seems, on Scrap and HyDra, because they were there last year and they were here this year as well. But there's a feeling that, let's not forget, last year, Christmas, New Year, 2024 to 2025, it was FaZe who was struggling in December. They put in so much time over Christmas, New Year. They came out, they fried, they won the first major. Thieves, clearly not in a great spot. What did they do over the Christmas New Year break? We don't know, but it doesn't seem like it was all that much, right? So I think that is the question from Ben, is like, okay, look, you guys are struggling right now. If there's any time to put in more time and make sure that the work ethic is absolutely nailed, because... yeah, people can scapegoat Kenny, and maybe it's a justifiable scapegoat, right? Like if Kenny's dropping some stinker series, for sure. But the point is there's probably a little bit more to it than that, and that is what people are getting into. So let me share a couple of clips here, what Formal has to say, what BenJ has to say, some of the reaction, people calling BenJ faded. You know, that is no surprise.
No, I think that from what I've gathered, it seems like HyDra has a very Shotzzy-esque playstyle where he's kind of okay playing an island and he wants to, you know, get in his own little bag around the map. Whereas with Simp, working with Abe, Simp was like aiding Abe the way he should have, where like Abe's going in, getting one, getting another guy weak, Simp comes in, gets one, and then gets two. And then it's like, now you have this godlike duo, right? That like dynamic they have just throughout the years, that was pretty consistent, where Abe would go in, get one that he has no business winning, Simp follows it up, gets two, boom, you have a break, or boom, you know, there's a play. Right now, it seems like Abe's kind of on an island. It's tough, man. Tough. It's tough. Yeah, I think the tipping point is Major 1. If Thieves go to Major 1, let's say they lose OpTic on Sunday, but they win out the rest of their matches and they start in winner's bracket, have a decent shot to perform at the Major, and they still do bad, they get, you know, top 8, top 6, make a change instantly. Instantly make a change. Things are not going to change. Fucking, that's it. But you gotta ride it out until the Major, in my opinion. You can't just give up on your roster before a Major. That's insane. it's just, it sucks, man. It sucks. I still think that LAT can go to the first major, and like you see them on a main stage, bro. They play against the top team. Who the fuck knows what will happen, bro? That team on paper is very good. Those are like players that will show up on stage, you know. So I don't think that they should give up just yet. And it sucks too because their next league match is against OpTic, and like holy fuck, man, all the eyes will be on that. But it's also a good thing too because you get a chance here. They have a decent position here to put in some serious work this week. Fucking just ignore all the bullshit that's being said about them, especially Kenny and aBeZy. Like, just say fuck it. Put their heads down this week. Fucking come out a different team, you know, when they play OpTic. And if they beat OpTic, then the whole narrative changes like that. It's just instant. Like, it's there's so much crazy how fast things can change for you.
I think for sure you're dropping Ken to try and get a few more kills on the map. But I'm gonna be honest, like, if they go in this major 1 cycle and they say get last,
that would be catastrophic.
Well, you guys call me the world's biggest aBeZy hater, but you're having a convo about making another change on this roster. Major 2 cycle. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
You're having a convo. Whether or not you pull the trigger on it, I don't know. I'm not in the room.
You're for
but
sure.
The convo is going to be had.
Yeah, because the convos are being had right now of like, how do we fix this? And if it just doesn't get fixed, like Ben said, if they come into this major and that's the result, I don't think that'll be the result. But if it is, holy hell, bro.
Listen, and I said this on the flank, Tom. You remember this? There were a lot of complaints from people in the scene that this Thieves team goes up late to practice against other teams. It seems like me externally, there could be going a little bit harder. I don't think they're problems. Yeah, maybe they rotate Kenny out. I think 1 person change should be enough to get the team where they're at. But it's an inward solution, not an outward solution. That makes sense?
What does that mean?
It's on them,
not an outward,
to figure out how to play with
like
each other.
inside the camp, they got to figure it out. Is what you're saying?
I mean, listen, bro. Listen.
I think people overcomplicate the fuck out of this, bro.
Yeah, Ben. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. Like, you're not in the camp. Like, you don't know how hard they're going. Like Thieves might be here.
Tom, ask any pro what team shows up late to scrims the most the last year and a half, and I think most of them are going to say Thieves.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're not going hard.
No, that's still unacceptable, though, if that's true.
No, it is unacceptable. But yeah, I don't.
Wait, Ben, real quick. Before I go, Ben, did you actually say that if Thieves replace Kenny, they should consider dropping aBeZy?
No, I said if they replace Ken and they bomb the rest of Major 1, they'll be combos. I don't think they will drop Paco and Scrap, but obviously they're going to have fucking combos. And if it's dropping Abe,
they're not going to consider dropping Abe. Are you high?
They're going to have combos.
No, they're not.
There will be combos.
No, they're not, Ben. I was just curious. Yo, real quick, let's go back to the Stallion stuff.
Of course, absolutely.
They're going to give Abe all the time in the world to figure it out. Anyways.
So these are the numbers so far this season for the Los Angeles Thieves. They're 2-2 in terms of series. Their last 2 series are pretty rough because they've not won a map now in 6 attempts. They beat Falcons and FaZe. Obviously, FaZe was the first series they played back in December. That was a hot little 3-0. It was actually a very competitive series, but it was a 3-0. They beat the Falcons and they got 3-0'd by the Gentamates bad. And then they turn up in January and the same thing happened again. These are the numbers. So Slayer rating, just to keep in mind, is number of expected kills in a 5-map series. Scrap is at 92. It's very strong. Scrap's at a 1.02 overall, of course lower than you would expect, but he's the only man in the positive right now. Kenny's at a 0.82, aBeZy's at a 0.95, HyDra's at a 0.97. So overall that looks pretty rough. Now you gotta say, the sample size here isn't great, and when you look at the individual game modes, things actually get a little bit more interesting. If you look at Hardpoint, for example, Scrap is dropping 27 kills every 10 minutes. That is way beyond what anyone else on his team is doing. HyDra is actually 3rd, only just above Kenny, and I think this is the question. I'm not saying, oh, HyDra's got to be dropped. I think HyDra is one of the most talented players ever, arguably the most talented that I've seen in this CDL era. Like, what HyDra's capable of is unbelievable, but we know that he can have slow starts to seasons, and in terms of his effectiveness on the map and him working with aBeZy, it ain't working right now. I mean, look at his objective work. This is where HyDra will sit, by the way. He's at 45 seconds per 10 minutes. Scrap is at 50. Now, Kenny has 59 seconds, aBeZy has 59 as well. Last year, Ghosty was in like the 80s and 90s, right? Like maybe more than that at times. So that's, an Envoy was in like the 80s seconds. So this is where Scrap and HyDra, if they play the game that they want to play, this is where they will sit in terms of objective time. Kenny and aBeZy got to figure out a way to make that work, or HyDra or Scrap have to adjust their play. But like, I think the way that Scrap plays is absolutely fine, right? It is very effective. I think it's not just a Kenny concern, I think is the argument here maybe. And if you look at engagements per 10, I know that lots of these for Kenny are deaths, but he has more engagements per 10 minutes than both HyDra and aBeZy, which probably shouldn't be the case. Maybe you could argue that's on Kenny, but also Kenny's engagements per 10 are quite reasonable when compared to Scrap. It's just, what are the SMGs doing on the map? Like, where are they in Hardpoint? It's a good question. Now, in Search and Destroy, the numbers look like this. Again, the overload is the most damning for Kenny. He's at a 0.7 in that game mode. It's been rough from start to finish. Engagements per 10 is actually very similar there across the board. He's just dying too often. So, like, Kenny's overload, yeah, it's not pretty. But if you look at the 2 game modes they're playing most of, I think there's a little bit more to it. Now, I think it's way too early to be having any kind of conversations about dropping aBeZy, right? The level of player that he is, you would hope that Thieves can find a way to figure that out. Whether Kenny being there or not being there is the way to go to make that more likely, that is the key question they will need to answer in the coming weeks. But very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.